Hola y bienvenidos to this week's Starot Talk. I'm Auri Solares, and we are in the week where the veil is at its thinnest. This is the week of Halloween, Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, and a moment in time where the physical, earthly realm is highly engaged and attuned to the spiritual realm, the unseen realms, what is behind the curtain of life, which is super powerful because it is so easy to fall into the monotonous, the mundane, the routine of it all, the go, go, go pace that exists in Western culture. And if you happen to live your life in a way that allows for slowness and time and energy to really be all yours, then you are extremely blessed. For a lot of people, that is something that everyone is striving for typically, to have autonomy over our own time and our own energy. So how does that interweave with this moment in time that is the thinning of the veil? Well, we are able to see beyond what we are maybe accidentally prioritizing at this time or holding as a strong influence in our lives at this time. We're able to gain a bigger perspective and see beyond just this waking reality or just this life into a more cosmic paradigm and say, within the grand scheme of things, you know, when they say floating rock, right? We're just on Earth, we're just in the universe and in the galaxy. To take it to that sort of expansive state, in a way it's helpful though, because you take your human ego out of the equation. You take the stories that you tell yourself about life and what it means to be you and what it means to be life out of the equation, and you say, we are on a planet, we are in a solar system, we are in a galaxy, we are in the universe, and there's all of these grander systems at play outside of planet Earth, and I am a life form on Earth, and I am a part of nature, and I'm a part of the animal kingdom, and I interact with the plant kingdom and the insect kingdom and the mineral kingdom. And what does this mean for me? And what does this mean for the life that I'm living and the purpose that I am striving towards or finding my purpose? So this time of the year doesn't have to just be ghosts and ghouls and spirits. It can just be a moment of reflection in how you are moving through life. If that sounds overwhelming, that makes sense, and you don't have to solve all of the mysteries of the universe in one go, but it's likely that we are going to start to have these sort of thoughts or communications or ideas from the astrology of the week. So little unexpected intro, but we are going to dive right in. So on Tuesday the 28th, martes el 28, we are going to have Mars in Scorpio making a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. We recently had Mercury in Scorpio make a trine to Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces. Mars is coming through and following in Mercury's footsteps. So whatever it is that's happened these last few weeks, whatever communications you've gotten or conversations you've had or thoughts that you've been really pondering on, Mars is now taking those messages and moving from those places, taking action from those places. We've maybe had the armchair philosophy aspect of, you know, thinking about a certain move or how to have a certain conversation, or maybe just in having these talks with other people in our life. And Mars is now coming in and saying, okay, so now what action can I take from that? So with Mars in Scorpio making a trine to Jupiter in Cancer, this is a highly emotionally intelligent transit where we can move from the emotions that we are feeling at this time and sort of let them guide us. Jupiter in Cancer has been a really abundant and helpful element into this part of the year because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And so it's likely that whatever part of your chart that you have Cancer, you have just been experiencing growth and expansion on. And with Cancer being our emotions, but also our body, the mother, family, nurturance, and the dream realm and intuition, Mars here takes all of that and says, how can I strategically use everything that I am gathering from this place in my life to move it towards the Scorpio element of our life, right? So moving from this intuitive place, moving from this emotional intelligence, saying, I don't just want to hold all of these emotions within myself. I want to create something of them. This feels like an incredibly creative transit, and I'm all here for it. So we start off the week with that transit on Tuesday, and I find it genuinely fun and healing and very soul stirring. On Wednesday, we have Mercury in Scorpio making its final aspect before it goes into Sagittarius. Mercury is going to make a trine to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune just retrograded back into Pisces, so we're back into this romanticization of compassion and fantasy and whimsy, and with Mercury and Scorpio being very cunning and sharp, I almost feel like this has a little bit of a whimsy goth sort of element going for it, and it's just a few days before Halloween, so if your conversations are a little bit more paranormal or spooky, or you're just engaging in more of these talks about, behind the veil and death and the afterlife and engaging with these greater philosophies, then embrace it, lean into it. This is a really good time to maybe journal or write poetry or to do something creative. This is giving Edgar Allan Poe. It's a little bit of a tortured artist kind of signification. And so I say play with it because it could be dark, but it can also be very fantastical and fun. Then Mercury is going to enter Sagittarius. A little bit about Mercury. Mercury loves to be in Gemini. Gemini is Mercury's domicile. Gemini is opposite Sagittarius. So when Mercury is in Sag, it almost yearns to be in Gemini, right? So it's actually in its fall in Sagittarius. Mercury loves information and details and being able to think very logistically, very logically. And in Sagittarius, it is forced to see the big picture. It must consider the philosophy of a system, the bird's eye view of why a communication is happening the way that it is. It's very outside of the box. And so you may notice that your conversations start to feel a little bit more philosophical, chaotic even, but let's not forget Sagittarius is a playful fire sign. Yes, we're philosophical. I say we because I'm a Sag. And I have Mercury in Sagittarius. So if you have been watching my videos, the way that I speak and the way that I think about things is very philosophical. It's very much seeing multiple perspectives about something. And that can be fun to shake us out of a static way of viewing the world. So if we need something to be burned to alchemize it and birth a new perspective or a new storyline for our life, this is the time to do it. So yes, Mercury doesn't do its best in Sag. Therefore, around this time, any contracts or any really important communications or meetings that might surface up, just take a little bit of extra preparation to show up there and to make sure everything is going well. We are going to have a Mercury retrograde soon, and it is stationing in Sagittarius. So it's already in its fall, and it's going to go retrograde. We are in shadow right now. So Mercury entered shadow at 20 degrees of Scorpio. So this means once it starts to retrograde in Sagittarius, it's going to go all the way back to 20 degrees of Scorpio and then start to move forward again. So we really started this retrograde story earlier on. So whatever conversations you were starting to have around the middle of October, expect that that is probably weaved into what this retrograde will signify for you. Nonetheless, I think that this could still be a really fun time for you to socialize and expand your perspective on life and to play with the fiery nature of Sag. If you have travels coming up, if you have important documents to sign, a new lease, a marriage contract, if you are going to need to speak in front of a lot of people anytime soon in November, just go in with as much of an optimistic attitude as you can, but be prepared for things to not go the way that you planned. I think that that's always just sort of, what's the saying? Hope for the best, expect the worst. I don't really abide by that philosophy. I like to just hope for the best and be so prepared that it's considered a little bit insane, but I'm prepared, so it's okay. So there's that. Then we have Mars making that trine to Saturn in Pisces that Mercury did in its time in Scorpio. So this feels like we are almost moving in secret to build something long lasting. We are strategically moving pieces around in our life to devote ourselves to what we want to commit to long term. This is a supportive aspect and consider as well it is in a grand water trine. So we've got Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn involved in Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So the nature of this grand water trine is very emotion-oriented, creative, intuitive, dreamy, deep feeling, and powerful. So not to mention, we've got two malefics and we've got a benefic. Jupiter the benefic, Mars, Saturn are malefics, which bring harder influences. So this feels like a meeting, like a very serious meeting where, because Mars is in its domicile in Scorpio, it does really well. Because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, it does great. Saturn is not so crazy about being in Pisces, but it's not suffering the way that it might be in Aries. So this feels like a grand water meeting of planets coming together to strategize on what is it that we feel that we want to commit to for the future, and how can we move towards it in a way that implements everything that we've learned from lessons so far in life in a way that is creative and that fuels our soul and that is healing for us and cathartic and that can inspire ourselves but also our community in a way that is grounded and realistic and approachable on a day-to-day basis. Because without that consistency and commitment and discipline that Saturn brings in, your dreams will have a really hard time manifesting on this plane. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I think, are really inspiring days, and I really appreciate that it's happening right before Samhain and Dia de los Muertos. Then we've got Mercury in Sagittarius making a opposition to Uranus in Gemini. This is all on Wednesday, so Wednesday is a pretty active day. When Mercury in Sagittarius makes an opposition to Uranus in Gemini, that is a recipe for circus level chaos, just clowning around town. You can't get a straight answer out of anybody. Again, Mercury's in shadow, so enjoy the circus, genuinely. And if you want to be a part of it, be mindful of how you're stepping forward. This doesn't have to be inherently negative, but it is going to likely bestow us with surprises that have to do with technology, information, commerce, finance, philosophy, religion. We have fire and air mixing here. And again, Mercury yearns for Gemini when it's in Sagittarius. So there is an element of maybe frustration or tension here, but this can be a really creative time as well, where we can channel our frustrations into something that is eccentric and definitely innovative. This, at the very least, can be really fun for socializing. You may or may not get into a very heated philosophical debate with a stranger that you just met 5 minutes ago, but you could get a lot of information out of that, and it could be quite fun, actually. I kind of like to do that. So the way that we work with this energy is going to be very interesting, but I think that whenever there's a planet in Sagittarius, you almost can't take things too seriously. Take it seriously within the regard of, is it abiding by my ethics and my morals and how I view in life? That does not get tossed out the window, but you are not so attached to how am I coming off? What is the outcome going to be? I have to make sure that all the details are in order. It's more like have fun with it. Just like lean into it and see what life wants to present to you. Then on Thursday, the 30th, Mercury in Sagittarius will make a sextile to Pluto in Aquario. Pluto in Aquario has been this energy, at least on a collective level, of intense sentiments around the necessity to shift power dynamics and control structures that are active in our planet right now. Themes of revolution, there's Aquario. Themes of uniting as a people. Themes of recalibrating power. Mercury's in Sag, who loves to talk about freedom and expansion and seeing the greater picture and the bigger perspective. So on this day, if you are having conversations with your community, your family, a friend, a partner, or just engaging in your own thoughts about what it means to be free, when is that allowed, who is allowed that, and when, how does that come into reality, how does one move towards that, who is considered in that movement, all of these ideas. If you find yourself engaging in those thoughts of freedom, what it means to be expanded, what it means to think about life in a greater whole, and what it is that we are broadcasting to the world, then that is this influence. And it's likely going to feel really powerful. I would be very surprised if this day happens and you don't experience a conversation either within your own life or externally that you hear about that is very moving for yourself or for others on the very nature of how we interact with each other in the world and how we are moving towards a reality that allows for more people to be free. So that's the week. And we're in Samhain and Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. I've spoken a lot about what that means for me. Whatever that means for you, I really hope that you can just use this energy to connect with your ancestors, the earth, the trees, their ancestors. The stars are our ancestors. And also our descendants. Who will come after us? Will someone come after us? What does that look like for you in your life? If you so much as would like to go down that path of thinking, be safe, have so much fun, and I hope that this weekend feels playful and spooky and healing and cathartic and creative and beautiful for you. It feels a little bit like going to the circus. And going to the circus is considered generally fun. We wouldn't live at the circus. Well, I would enjoy that. But you can visit, you can take something from it, and then you can bring that back into your own life and say, okay, I know what piece I was missing that I want to incorporate now moving forward. We will talk more about Mercury's retrograde as we continue into the month. For now, again, just something to be mindful of since it is humming underneath the weeks ahead. And we will be feeling it more and more and more, especially as we approach that retrograde station. So with that, we are now going to draw a card for this week. They always fall. Okay, so we have the Hanged Man. If this isn't Mercury in shadow in Sagittarius, I don't know what is. The Hanged Man is quite literally forced to see the world from an unconventional place. I've always interpreted the Hanged Man as a card that has a lot of voluntary will to it. So yes, through seeing things from a different perspective, we can achieve enlightenment, or we can receive an epiphany, a eureka moment. And it's uncomfortable. There's blood rushing to your head. Your legs and ankles probably hurt. You're going to be sore if someone ever lets you down. You may never come down from this place. Ideally, you do, though. The Hanged Man makes the most out of the situation that it's in by seeing things from a different perspective and bringing that back home to his reality or her reality or their reality, and saying, yes, I was put in an uncomfortable situation, but now I understand things that I wouldn't have understood before being placed in this position. So as we approach the Mercury retrograde, as we are in shadow, as things start to feel a little bit more circus-like, what can we learn from that? And what wisdom is waiting for us in that chaos? There's wisdom everywhere if you look for it, and the Hanged Man is more than willing to find it, because it's almost what will allow for him to be relieved of his duty of being hung upside down. So very apt card for this week, and it just encourages us to, again, not take things so seriously and to see things from a playful perspective. Think of a child playing. You maybe are playing with your niece or your nephew or your children, and they're just making up stories, and you might expect that they weave the story a certain way, but they just take it a completely different direction, and it reminds you of how your child brain used to see the world, and it sort of takes you back to that place, and you can take that into your adult reality thereafter. It is always available to us that we can put on our childhood glasses and see the world from this from scratch, from zero place, with no social structure, expectations placed upon us, or narratives of who we are, who we have to be, and we can just see the world from this place of innocence and curiosity and excitement, And maybe those glasses stay on for a minute or so and then we take them off. Maybe we want to spend the whole day with the glasses on, or maybe we just never want to take them off, which I do think that as adults, we have a responsibility to balance our availability to lean in that realm, but to also use discernment and to not be naive, right? We don't want to be the fool. But there's something to be said for the fact that at any given moment in time, we can just change the glasses that we use. And I have about like 4 pairs of glasses that I like to switch between, especially when I feel like I have just cemented my perspective and my brain into operating in a very Western paradigm. Capitalism is just like infiltrated in there and it just feels yucky. And I switch glasses like throughout the day because I don't like to settle in that way of seeing the world. But it's nobody's fault. We are inundated with programming and routines imposed by our current society that says you have to wake up to go to your 9 to 5 and you have to sit in traffic and you have to go get groceries. And so it's not your fault if you fall into that way of thinking about things, and you have all of the power and all of the control to say, I have been operating in this mode for the last 5 hours of my day. I want to take these glasses off and I want to put on my glasses of when I was 5 years old. Or I want to take these off and I want to put on my glasses of how I see reality when I am in my dream realm. Or I want to take my dream glasses off and I want to put them on for how I experience afterlife after I'm no longer in this corporal body, whatever it might be. I hope that that made sense. So, have so much fun this weekend. I plan to. I'm super excited. This is one of my favorite parts of the year. And I think it allows for humans to just remember that there is a fantastical way of living and being that is in connection with death that we are not always reminded of throughout the year, especially considering that in a lot of cultures, death is a taboo thing. And I don't think it has to be. I don't think it should be. I think that we should be in reverence to death every single moment of the day. And I believe that we should cultivate an intimate relationship with death because it's something we all have the privilege to experience at some point in our life. And it could happen to me in 5 minutes or to you in 10 years. And I think that that is an elegant and gorgeous and beautiful thing. So if death scares you and you don't want to think about it, that's okay. I invite you to give yourself permission, though, to at some point in time ask yourself why and to see where that takes you. So thank you so much for being here with me today, and I will see you so soon. Adios.